Anything Goes was a 6-issue benefit comic that Fantagraphics published in 1986. It was to pay for legal expenses for a lawsuit they had. And so basically how it works is that creators just donate work to Fantagraphics for free, and then that way Fantagraphics can go ahead and sell these issues and raise funds. And there were, I believe, 6 issues in this series. I have 5 of them, but I kind of wanted to go through issue number 2 because I think issue number 2, just on its own, is as close to a perfect anthology comic as you can get. And I'll explain why. The cover is by Frank Miller, colors by Lynn Varley. Lynn Varley, to me, is always the unsung hero to Frank Miller's greatest work. That's just my opinion. I'll stick to it. This is his 80s style, which has had more detail to it. I enjoy that much better than his style now. The first story is Pictopia, written by Alan Moore and drawn by Don Simpson. And it is a really well-regarded, basically a lament on Alan Moore's part to the state of comics, because even in 1986, he could see that the comics from the 20s and the 30s, 40s, up into the Silver Age, were all being just cast aside. And what was really dominating comics was not only the superhero, but the characters that were hyper violent, hyper drawn, more aggressive, mean. And this is basically his way of just not being happy with it. Just a really wonderful story. I'm not going to spoil it. If you've read the story, you know how good it is. I forget sometimes how good Alan Moore was until I read something that he did. He doesn't do comics anymore, but when he was doing comics, you read something like, oh, that's right, I forgot how good he was. And so this is just another one great story. The next story is a 4-pager by Jaime Hernandez. It's a Loca story featuring Maggie and Hopi. The whole premise of the story is just that Race Rand, who was her mentor and her boss when she was being a space mechanic, that was an intro with Roman Rockets for Jaime Hernandez before he got rid of that storyline, just made it focused around this fictional city based in Oxnard, California. And this is like 3-4 years after Jaime started doing Love and Rockets. You can just tell how good he's gotten. This storytelling is just fabulous. There's so much that's told in the 4 pages. Next story is a 2-page Sam Key story. I love the title. And speaking of those abstract, pretentious stories that make you feel stupid if you don't get them, I run into this a lot personally with a lot of indie and small press, especially small press, where I don't know if they're doing it intentionally, but sometimes the stories are just way too in their head and you're like, what are they talking about? And sometimes you just miss the point, but sometimes the point is, I'm not even sure what the point is. And so when I read this, I just thought it was funny. And this is a lovely 2-page story that's sort of like one of these pretentious stories that you're really not sure what it's about. Sam Keith does a really lovely job of doing this nice, slow-paced, beautifully drawn story. I associate Sam Keith a lot with like the Max and other things he's done, but he was just wildly talented. Just a great, nice, soft, slow piece. For this issue, Jack Kirby did some drawings, and Joe Sonnet inked them. And it's the first time in years that he inked Jack Kirby's work. So just always a treat to see Kirby and Sonnet again. And then this story, Chrysalis by, and I'm just going to get it right, lyrics by Jack Cronin and art by Dennis Fujitake. I've never seen Dennis Fujitake, but I do know that this has very much like a Mobius kind of vibe. I like the art. Just a 3-pager. It's just really lovely. That's it. Not familiar with him, but I thought it was a great story. And then here is a reprint. Walt Disney Lives. This is a reprint from 1972 by Art Spiegelman. His castigating the Disneyfication of America. And it's kind of funny because in 1972, Disney, in this book, and a lot of people's minds, is sort of like the symbol for like the homogenization of America and culture and taste. And now, 50 years later is trying to be more upfront and more with the times, and then you have certain governments that are trying to like rein it back in. It's kind of funny how it's almost kind of like flipped. But this is a great 2-page story by Art Spiegelman. Just really shows his chops and how good he was doing underground comics. And then just, who's who. And that's it. If you find this like in the dollar bin or something, I'd pick it up if you haven't read it already. It's just good stories. It's really good anthology issue. There's nothing bad in here, at least for me. So that's it, really. I just wanted to kind of visit because I've read most of the others. It's just this one really stood out. Anyway, thanks. And as always, read better comics. Thanks.